Coach?
Hey man, how are you?
Doing great, man.
Doing great. You sound either some allergies coming on, or a little bit like you maybe still in your flannel PJs.
Maybe a little bit of both. I haven't had my allergy medicine since I've seen you. My dealer.
Man. Yeah, I am a hardcore platinum-based Claritin dealer.
Yeah.
Been saving me since I think early May. But yeah, man, I'm all about the Claritin. I can probably get off of it here shortly. Every time I think about getting off, I'm like, I gotta wait. Probably gotta wait till probably October, to be honest with you. So I'm in the clear.
Yeah, in the clear Claritin. It's a fine line for me, man. I think I start taking that, and then if I get dehydrated, it kind of clogs me up. It's a weird mix. You know what I mean?
Of dehydration and allergies?
Yeah, I mean, because, like, allergy medication kind of dries you up. So
I don't know if Claritin does.
Oh, boy.
We got a theory coming on. I don't know how things like Mucinex and like decongestants definitely dry you out, but I think Claritin, I'm not sure if it actually does dry you out or not.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but either way, maybe I have a little bit of both going on. But I feel just fine.
Yep. Well, that's good.
Just fine.
Are you recovering from the road trip?
Yeah. Looks like we got out of there just in time, too.
Yeah, looks. It's interesting how the world turns. So the world turns. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or what's that soap opera that they have?
As the world turns, yeah.
As it is, yeah. As the world turns, yeah.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
I hear.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good.
It must have been all right. It lasted about 100 years.
Solid recovery. It's probably still on, actually. So is The Days of Our Lives.
It's not still on.
Is it? The show's like General Hospital, and like, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I remember like being home in the summertime when I was a kid, and my mom like pulling it up. I'm like, what's going on here? I don't get. It's like the worst acting ever.
I know.
Like the worst plot lines, and some of these like characters, which I got to give it to them. Some of these characters last like 30 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know that if we have any first-time podcast listeners, we need to do a deep dive into our soap opera recollection of the shows that we like or don't like. But yeah, if you didn't know, this is the Crushing Iron Triathlon podcast. It's Thursday, August 2nd. We're hanging out currently in Central Time, 9:05. We've been coming from the Eastern as we came back from Ohio. And then I'll be jetting off back to Eastern Time Zone here in a few hours as we make our way towards Virginia for a family wedding.
Man.
Yeah. It's going to be great.
Yes, that's my boy. That's the attitude.
It's going to be great. It's somewhere. We were going to stay in a hotel, but actually I think we're now in a cabin up kind of in the mountains. So I actually think it's going to be a pretty good thing. I don't like traveling a lot, but once we get home from Virginia, we don't have any travel, anything for at least 8 to 9 weeks, which is right up my alley. So it's all good. It is all good, but we appreciate you tuning in. And I know we got a lot of new listeners, probably like 3 from Ohio 70.3. So we hope everybody is recovering well. You can always subscribe to us on iTunes. Listen and download, and then if you like what you hear, don't like what you hear, please feel free to leave us a review. They're always incredibly helpful. And then if anything perks your attention on today's podcast or any other podcast, you can always go to crushingiron.com to check out all the things that we offer in terms of coaching and training plans, swim analysis, our blog, tribute race videos, kind of like the one that Mike just did for Ohio 70.3 in like a 48-hour turnaround, which is impressive, faster than Ironman, and all other kind of things. So then we also have on the top banner, we have a pledge button where you can donate to support the podcast and all of our adventures, like taking trips to Ohio and doing things like the race review and the race director are on, and the race recap and the race video. So all those things cost time and money, but we offer them for free. So anything is appreciated. And I think both you and I are recovering from the trip and then moving on to bigger and better things.
Yep. I think it's important to note that we're doing this because we love triathlon, we love the sport, and we want to keep kind of spreading the good vibe and helping, I don't want to say re-energize the sport, but I've been hearing that a lot. It's like I think the attitude of things is changing a little bit, and I talked to the race director up there, Ken Hammond in Ohio, and he feels a good, kind of good momentum going on, and I feel like we want to be a part of that, and that's sort of our core value as to why we do this, because we see so many good people, we meet so many good people, and we see the energy of said people, and I can't say enough, really. Like, honestly, dude, I day-to-day life, you walk around, you run around, and you see people. I get a sense that a lot of people are in like complete daze, and I think that's what I loved about, being around Ohio and just being around other athletes, because in my mind, I see triathletes as people who are trying to get better, trying to get the most out of, what life has given them, and, just that sort of thing. And I think at the core of all the stuff we're doing, that's what drives me the most, is that it's so cool to be around positive people. And I'm not saying like super positive all the time or whatever, but at least they're thinking, okay, this is life and let's make the best of it.
I think that's fair.
Okay. Well,
yeah. I mean, it's a much more positive spin than you're taking on your relentless dissection of the Ohio 70.3 race experience in our last podcast.
Well, I mean,
you were relentless.
Nobody's perfect.
Yeah, no, that's just true. And Ken, if you're listening again, the race director listened to our podcast, and I think he was a little disappointed we only gave it a 4 stars. But listen, man, it's a 1 to 5 star rating. If we just threw out 5 stars every once in a while, like a freaking race, participation ribbon, nobody would take it seriously.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we have until this point ever given a 5 star. We've given them in the 3 to 4 star range, with some change. So we have high standards, but there's always room to improve, hopefully, and get better. But we look forward to going back next year and maybe checking it out and seeing the improvements.
Yeah. No, we all have weight. We all. If I got a 4 star from you, I'd be happy.
Yeah, that's just listen. A 4 star for me, and I'm not picky. I'm just detail oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Big difference. It's like a lot of people like to, complain about certain things. And listen, the race itself was fantastic. Very well put on. Really no complaints. But I just look at specific details and give my best feedback. But hey, anything 4 star or above to me is it's up on the return trip possibility list for 2019. If it's a 3 star, it's not even really in the bucket.
Yeah.
And anything below that is I'm not going back. And I've been to races and said I'm definitely not doing that again. So that definitely was not one of them. So
it's interesting.
Again, that's
well, no, I was just going to say that the actual race execution. I think you even said it might have been a little higher than that, but it's like for me,
I think I get a 4.25 or 4.5 stars for race execution.
Yeah, to me that's like I always everything I look for. Me is like the setting and the majesty of it and the whole
the majesty.
Well, I mean, like I'm the kid, I'm the kid that grew up playing. We would just create games and like bike races and relays and all these kinds of things, and we'd always look for ways to make them more interesting and cooler and stuff like that. And I think that, and this has nothing to do with anybody in particular, it's just that, like the logistics sometimes of the cities or what have you, and the Ironman negotiation and whatever. But I think sometimes that the safety and money factors just don't allow them to get real creative with the courses and do things that I think that would make them a lot more enjoyable. It's like,
yeah,
I don't know. You see some of these. I think I think it's getting harder too because there's more and more events and more stuff going on in cities, and it's not as unique as it used to be. Whereas, like, geez, another weekend is going to be taken up. We got to block the roads and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. Whereas, back in the day, maybe when Boston Marathon started or something like that, they wanted to run it through all the cool parts of Boston and really give the flavor of the city. And now it's just like, yeah, how can you guys stay out of our way? We'd love to have you here, but I think there's a lot of that.
Yeah, we'd love to have you. Just it's kind of like around the holidays when you invite all your family over, but you kind of hope that specific family members like stay in the other room. Like you turn on the Thanksgiving football game, and you're like, we want you here, but hang out in the rec room.
It's a little bit like that.
Hang out in the rec room with the TV, and I'll put on the another terrible Thanksgiving Day game, and I'll bring you some chest pie and some turkey and dressing and cranberry sauce, and love to have you. Glad you're here. Sit down on the couch. Don't get up again. Minimal words. We all have that family member, and I'm like, yeah, just keep your distance. And so, next time if you're around Thanksgiving, Christmas, you find yourself and you're the one sitting just a couple people, you may realize you're the odd man out or odd lady out. So, always be aware. But no, it was overall great event, and we're always trying to find things to make things better, but at the same time, still making sure that our appreciation and gratitude for how well the race was put on, because it was very, very good, very, very good day, and I'm sure they'll have a lot of other good days since they're definitely coming back and doing some more races there. So, but yeah, this week for a lot of people is, me is a little bit of recovery, and then there's a ton. There's also some races this weekend, Boulder 70.3, and some other ones. But after that, a lot of people are starting their their big builds, whether it be for Ironman Wisconsin, Ironman Chattanooga, Ironman Louisville. Then you're going to have Florida and Arizona and Cozumel. And it's like everybody's year is kind of like finally coming to, like its pinnacle. You've been kind of thinking about it. Now it's like, now it's like the real deal.
Yep.
Now it's time.
I've got a list. I put together a list, actually, for those races that you just mentioned.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to bring this up because it's we're talking about North American races here, basically.
Mont Tremblant as well. Yeah, is this month?
Is it?
August. Yeah.
Okay, August. So that you can try and guess at that one. I've got 38 days to Wisconsin, 58 days to Maryland, 59 days to Chattanooga, 73 days to Louisville, 93 days to Florida, and 108 days to Arizona and Cozumel. So we're right in the pocket, man, for six big Ironman races. And I mentioned it on the last podcast, but I got to thinking, I think I talked to a lot of people, and it's sort of like a switch flips right around now, I think. People are like, okay, especially like I got some people doing Wisconsin, some buddies, and they're kind of getting in this mode where they're starting to forget and not believe anything, and like they're not sure about, I had a buddy ask me if he should wear socks on the run. I'm like, dude, you might want to have that decision like dialed in a little bit tighter. But so I just want to bring up, like, I've done this in the past, where I get closer, maybe 2 to 3 months out, and I really start dialing in on you and leaning on you for your coaching and stuff like that. And I just wanted to kind of put it out there that, if you're self-coached right now and you're kind of getting that weird feeling, it's not a bad time to, hire a coach for a few months to make sure you're going into this race. It's your big, it's what you've been training for like for a year. So now's not a time to kind of screw it up with overtraining or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I think last year, outside of like the early part of the year when people, get coaches or, some people make coaching change. I think this time of year, if I recall from last year, was a little bit busier because of that. People self-coach, and it's easy to have confidence that you're doing all the right things when it doesn't. I don't want to say it doesn't really matter, but it's so far away from the day that does matter. And then the closer you get, you tend to overanalyze everything. And are you doing too much? Are you doing too little? And then all your friends that are also doing the races are like, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And you're like, well, maybe I should do this and maybe I should do that. And you throw like a million ingredients into one thing and expect something good to come out. And And also at the same time, you're more than likely starting to jack up training volume. And so your time is less. And so you have less time to look at your workouts or less time to make a plan. Honestly, most people who self-coach, they download a free plan off Ironman or something like that and just go by it. And yeah, I probably get a few emails a week around this time for people wanting kind of like a 2 race day. And is it ideal as, working for months and months and months? No. But, a lot of times it's better to to have confidence. You can just kind of take your hands off and just do the workouts and not question anything. But yeah, it's always open, and I do it if I've got room and availability. Definitely can help. So I had a couple people this last week that I did some plans for. But yeah, it's they're all within 100 days. I think I just counted. I've got people like in pockets on Training Peaks, and I think I have currently 47 more. I'll have 47 people competing in an Ironman in the next 100 days.
Wow.
Which is a lot. Mount Tremblant is then in Wisconsin, Arizona, Cozumel, Florida, Chattanooga, Louisville, basically all the ones in North America. I had some people like Canada this last weekend. I had some people in Lake Placid. So yeah, it's that time of year. So things are getting busy, and I kind of touched on this a little bit in our active athlete closed group. And as people kind of give I kind of like to give them a warning when it's their last, recovery week. And I'd probably need to retitle it and just call it family week. Mm-hmm. Which is basically work out minimally, do little things here and there, but basically it's like you're preparing your Ironman training will. Get your affairs in order. Mm-hmm. do some extra landscaping, do the things all around the house that your wife's been bugging you for the last few months you keep on putting off. Get ahead of schedule. Anything you can get ahead on before you start your major build, do it now. Spend some extra time with family. Take the week to recover. And this is a mistake a lot of athletes make, is either they just start way too soon and then they kind of flatline and level off, which is also honestly one of the reasons why another reason why some athletes will reach out in terms of coaching when they get closer to an event, because they have been in the quote unquote Ironman training for so long. They're kind of they're losing their zeal and their energy and motivation for training, and it's I just keep doing the same thing over again. Oh, look, another zone 2 4-hour ride, woohoo, or another 100-mile ride with a 20-mile brick run, woohoo, leave me shelled for a month. And so I like to use this week, especially for Wisconsin athletes are already in it. They've already kind of said goodbye to things that making sure that they got all our stuff in order, and Chattanooga and Louisville are not too far behind. Still got plenty of time for Florida, Arizona, and Cozumel, but it's really nice. I remember we've mentioned this a couple of times on the podcast, but I think it was post Muncie. I remember when I just started working with you that very first year, and I gave you and the other guys in the Fab Five what I consider your most difficult week yet. And it was, and I do this a lot, depending on, especially with an athlete who has been training consistently. If they've come off a big race, sometimes I just give them an entire week, and I just label it, unstructured workouts. Do whatever you feel like, whenever you feel like it, or don't do anything. Hang out with your friends, hang out with your family, say yes to everything that is not around triathlon. If it's going out to dinner, if it's meeting somebody for coffee, it's doing this on the weekend, you need to say yes. Because in the next few weeks, 5 to 6 weeks, until you start to taper, you're more than likely going to have to say no. And you don't want to build this up, for months and months and months and months. And that's another reason why I think it's so important to keep these builds, somewhat condensed, because you can keep your attention span, and you're not asking it to drag on for your family. Like, you don't want your family to be like, when is this over again? Like,
Yeah,
when's your
right.
race? Like I'm ready to get you back, and so you don't want that to be 3 or 4 months long. You want to be like, listen, to your spouse or significant other or friends, or like, listen, I just give me this month, give me a little over a month. Give me 5 weeks, 5, 6 weeks, max 7. Just give me this, a month and a half to just dial it in, and then it's over. And so most people can do that, and they can keep their attention span, they can keep the motivation, and keep their energy. And the biggest thing is keeping that energy. And the other reason why that, like, down week, recovery week, or family week, whatever you want to call it, is so important is because not just like recovering, mentally and emotionally, from the structure and because training for an Ironman is a whole different animal. It's a grind. It just is. There's just no way around it. It's just you're just doing a lot of stuff, and you're doing it all the time, and it's just a grind. That's why you also can't hold that grind, for a long period of time. But I kind of consider, like, Ironman build to taking like a Maymester or Junemester like class. Like, it's short, it's sweet, it's really, really condensed, it's a ton of information, but most people actually do really, really well in that format. Instead of dragging on a class for an entire semester where you have holidays and breaks and sickness, and then basically you're like, I don't really have any motivation. I don't really get a grade or figure out what I need, or what my final score is going to be for like 4 months. So what's the big deal? I can skip class, I can not study for this test, I can do whatever. But if it's in like one of those, Maymester, Junemester classes, when you're taking a summer semester class, you basically go to class for a little bit longer each day, but it's condensed to like 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And so you got to pay attention every day, you got to focus, you got to dial in. So because you're doing that, most people actually score very much higher on their tests. When they because it's just condensed. It's like I can do this for just 3 weeks.
Focus.
I can just focus. And then also you need, from a physical standpoint, especially for athletes who have been consistent all year long. Yes, have you tapered for events? Yes, have you covered for events? Yes, but there's still some there's always going to be residual fatigue left. You'll never be as fresh as you will possibly be the whole entire year until right before your last race. Because the idea and is not to shed every single bit of your fatigue before every race. It's just shed enough to perform well, get good feedback, do your best, and we'll start over again. It's not get rid of it. Because we talk about this on other podcasts. It is, we only have really 1 to 2 max, in my opinion, matches to totally burn. We light them. We let it burn. It burns up the whole match, and then we're done. A lot of people try to burn matches in training, but then they feel like they can go 110%, leave it all on the course, and just crush themselves every single time they go to race. And you can't do that. And it takes a lot of patience and a lot of self-control to see the big picture. And I had some athletes racing Chattanooga this weekend, which, did they give it their best? Sure. But they also knew that this was an execution race for stepping stone for the big picture. And that's what it's all about. And so, but this week is also good because you want to shed a little bit extra fatigue, because now we're about to dig a very, very big hole. Mm-hmm. The biggest hole we've dug all year. And you got to be prepared and fresh to dig that hole. And so it's important, and some athletes won't take it seriously. They'll try to get a head start on training, and they'll try to do more that's prescribed, or do extra, like you get extra credit. Well, the next week that's on the block, you're probably not going to do as well. It's just like it's a fatigue kind of domino that continues to fall, and you have to be very wary of it, and again, like I posted in the close group, like for a lot of athletes, unless they just absolutely don't want to see it, because some people it gives like a panic attack to, that, for Ironman, usually instead of just doing 1 week at a time, I'll try to do at least 2 weeks at a time, which is more of an outline, because I'll still adjust things on the day to day if I need to, or week to week, or on their schedule. But it's good for them to kind of see what's coming. What's coming, what's building on the next, what's the next weekend going to be, what's the next weekend going to be. Because I found that it helps athletes out psychologically and emotionally to kind of know, okay, this is what's next. Okay, this is what's next. Okay, this is what's next. Also because it prevents them from doing more. Because they see the next week is already more.
Right.
So they're like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't, push this too hard, or I won't be able to do this workout in X amount of days, and so it's keeping everything just top of mind and right in the moment and focused and dialed in. And then I think the last time I'll do it is which is the best one, is I'll lay their last gigantic week, if they're an athlete that can handle that, like a gigantic week out there, and then I'll immediately also right behind that show their 2 taper weeks, just because it's like I can do it. I only got to do this for 7 more days. And I can focus, and most athletes can do that. It's helpful for them to see kind of the end, because they'll hold on for longer and do their best longer, be more consistent and not skip. Versus what most of the time happens with Ironman athletes, and it's, am I there already? I've already done enough. And they have fatigue, and their long rides just turn into lazy group rides with no quality, where they just sit in the saddle and coast for half the time, or they draft, and it's just not. It becomes much less quality than it does just kind of going through the motions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love hearing you explain it like that, because I'm starting to more and more understand that the race is basically a microcosm of training, in a sense that it's that pacing, and you have to take that into training as well. And it is like that, like you're saying, well, if I can just get through mile 95 on the bike, I can see the end. But if you didn't know when the race was going to end, it's like you would start losing your mind, right? So that's a great call about how you drop in some taper weeks after the last big week, and just give them a glimpse of the finish line, so to speak. And I think that's a huge psychological barrier to cross. But as you're saying, you don't want to, as you're in this phase, just if you're feeling good, you don't want to go over and above that, because you've got another big week coming. You got the hill section on the course coming, so you can't burn everything right now. It's just, the whole thing is an exercise in patience, and we talk about that ad nauseum. But I think that it's just very interesting how you break that out, and the build phase, and how really important it is to be a stickler on that, and not go too far, and just do the best you can, and then recover, because you've got 3 weeks now. Taper is an interesting thing, because you show the taper week and everything, but that doesn't mean they're, I always talk about, just sitting on the couch and everything like that. And it's an interesting thing to go through a taper, because I think ideally the goal is you want to actually feel your best the day before or 2 days before the race, and you won't feel that way through your taper.
No,
I think that's a point that kind of gets lost a lot, is that you might feel those niggles and those pains, and you might feel that fatigue 3-4 days from your race, and be like, Jesus, man, what the hell? But the whole point is to get everything back right before the race, and that's the timing aspect that is so, tricky, I guess. But
yeah, it's different with athletes, with different athletes too, because and it's important to experiment with specific athletes. I just did this, I think, a couple of weeks ago with a few athletes. Is they kind of hop backed into a shorter course event, and instead of most of my athletes will joke about this, and they'll be like, if you, I don't know what it's like to get a day off, because we don't do the mandatory Mondays off for whatever reason people do that for,
Mm-hmm.
or like a Friday. I just don't give designated days off of the week because, like I've said before, A, they're pointless, and B, if you schedule one, then you're probably going to get two, because people are going to, especially like, why would you schedule a Monday off? Like, I just don't get it. Like, the week, they're not even like, the week hasn't even gotten to them yet. If you're going to schedule one off, like, schedule one off for like Friday. So if they miss, like, which most people do, Monday through Thursday, life happens, work, family obligations, sleeping in, overtired. Why not at least like give them a Friday off? So if they miss and they take a day off, which a lot of people do during the week, they can at least make it up on Friday. But anyway, that's not my business.
Okay.
But yeah, sorry about that. And now I lost where I was going. I was just a little bit of a tangent.
That's all. Monday. Why do you Mondays?
Yeah, it's just a case of the Mondays.
Day off on Monday. The day off Monday. I'm trying to think of a title for this cast.
Yeah.
Take Monday off.
Yeah. Maybe we should do that next week. Just take Monday off, just because, and then you won't get a podcast. God, what was I saying though or what did you say before we went into before I went to how much I hate that Monday
I was
off?
talking about taper and how the timing of it.
Oh yeah. Sorry, because somebody just sent me like what they were doing currently, and of course I had like a Monday off, and I was just like fuming out of my eyeballs. This is yesterday, sorry. But no, so I had a few athletes that, like I said, they'll joke about getting a day off, and so during race week, and because usually I will, oftentimes it's like a travel day, because that's just hard to get in, and it's already stressful enough. So I'll throw in like a day off on like the last week of their taper, that is race week. But a couple times, with one athlete specifically who was doing 2 races on one weekend, I didn't do a day off. I actually inserted another bike workout that was actually, I don't want to say it was difficult, but it was it definitely wasn't easy. And because I know that some athletes do really, really well when they don't ever get, I don't want to say totally fresh, because you can get away with this in like Olympics and sprints and even an occasional half, is that it's good to keep tension in their muscles. It's good to keep things engaged and ready to fire. And we discussed a little bit of this, philosophy and approach on the Steve Magnus podcast that we did last year, about how important it is to keep tension. And that's kind of like the ebb and flow of what usually happens during a big taper, which is like Ironman, is that you have all this fatigue and you've dug this huge hole. I really like to like immediately dump as much fatigue as possible out of the get-go, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of that week. Like just get fresh, let your body heal itself, and then I'll start to add back in a little more intensity. Because you don't want the body to like go to sleep. You want things to, be pre-primed and ready and get that race feel. You don't want it to get lazy and lethargic, which is what a lot of people do. Mm-hmm. Now, you do want to come in super, super fresh, like something like a full, but it's important to keep, some intensity in there so you're still feeling ready. And obviously, like I said, a full taper is much different because it's just such a demanding day. And then especially if this is the athlete's big race of the year, then you want them as fresh as they can possibly be to be able to dig the most gigantic hole they can possibly dig on race day. Because that's honestly what it comes down to. And I think that's why some athletes are able to throw it out all on the line and some aren't, because, and it should be. You should be able to dig much, much deeper your biggest race of the year, A, because you're in the fittest you've ever been, and B, because you're the freshest you've ever been. But just that mentality of, this is it. I don't have to train next week. I don't have another race in a month. This is it. This is my end of the year. I can be as shelled and as tore apart and as destroyed as I possibly am willing to go. And you can only get there if you're fresh enough to do it. If you're fresh enough to go there, then you can do it. And if you're mentally and emotionally there, you can do it. But you have to be both mentally, emotionally, and physically fresh in order to demand that from your body.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is just kind of, I think it's that like racing with freedom of relief. Like, I don't, like, who cares if it takes me a month to recover? It's football season, baby. I'm going to be kicking my feet up on the couch, watching football and hanging out with friends and enjoying the fall weather and taking walks with my dog and the family. Like, let's just dig the biggest hole that I can and let's just lay it all out.
Yeah. Yeah. And we were talking the other day about, when I heard that football coach, NFL coach say something about how college, new draft picks come into the league and they're kind of soft in a way because they're not used to practicing and the intensity and strength and speed of the NFL and things like that. And he was calling it they're just not calloused enough. And I think that is a very interesting way to think about it, in terms of, you do these big builds and you somehow keep sucking it up for the next day. And a lot of times your builds are more or less covering the distance of an Ironman over the course of a long weekend or 3 days or something like that. And you actually keep pulling it up. And by the end, it's sort of like how you feel like crap when you start a run sometimes, but about, 5 miles in, you're starting to feel good, and I always think of that in terms of your body coming alive. I'm like, all right, I recognize this and getting stronger and tougher. And that's why I think that, experience in races can take you a long way sometimes. But also what you said is excellent. If you're mentally prepared to lay it on the line and understand that, just because your hammy starts kind of cramping up a little bit on mile 8, that doesn't mean you need to start walking. You just need to power it, get through it and just go. I mean, it's not like you have a workout to do the next day or the next week that matters, really. You just need to figure out a way to mentally tough it out. And, this comes back to my don't walk the run thing. It's like I just feel like that mental game on that run is so huge, and that's just, it's either having the calluses built up sometimes, or it's I know things can go wrong, don't get me wrong, but so much of it is being ready to dig that deepest hole of your season right there. And it's not pleasant because you got a shovel out and you're hitting rocks, and you just got to figure out a way to pry those rocks loose and get through that next layer, and then make it happen.
But the thing is, and this is like so much of what we've talked about all the time, is when people get stuck in that, like, I'm always training in, my race day pace or what I want to average on race day, and I'm always doing that 24/7. And they always in that, what they call like the gray zone and whatever, and and then you don't have the ability on race day to dig any deeper because you're not even close to being as fresh as you want to.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
And that's and we've joked about this before, is like, it's better to be 100% undertrained than 1% overtrained. Because for a lot of people, like, Ironman is just one day. You only have to do it once. And instead of asking your body to do it every other weekend, like you'll see here, every weekend you're going to see people, especially if you're a triathlete and you're a part of all these Facebook groups, and they're like, everybody's doing like 120-mile rides and 3-mile swims and 10-mile runs all on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And then so you just always fall in like, yeah, have fun. Have fun. A, ruining your entire day, and then B, burning all of your matches, or really just creating a very, very teeny tiny match that you're going to burn at like mile 60 of the bike. And what you want to do is A, have a match to burn, and it be the biggest, most gigantic, flammable match you've had all year. And you haven't even, instead of like striking it and testing it, which is okay to do, you've just been building it. And then when it's time to just let it rip on the run, you're both at a mental and physical place to where you can let it rip and then just go. And most people just can't do that because they don't train in a way that allows them to do that, nor are they prepared mentally to be able to give it their what it's probably their best, and to dig a hole. Because I mean, after an Ironman, if you have raced it and raced it hard, you should be borderline destroyed for at least a week, in my opinion.
Yeah. Man, I love what you're saying there about training at race pace, because, I think about hills a lot, or whatever the case may be. It's just that feeling. All right, so let's say you're doing hill repeats and you're just, you're kind of at your limit and you're done and you're just ready to stop. And that's when I think it's like, one more, man. Just, that to me is not necessarily to wear you down, but just to understand that feeling. Like, because that's when you start feeling your hammies and your quads and things like that, or just that explosive segment on the bike, just getting one more of those in and getting your body used to understanding what that means. And it won't be equivalent to what you'll do in Ironman, but it'll be a similar feeling, you know what I mean? And your body and mind understand what that means, to push up just another level, just a little bit, because as you get, we talk about on the run, if you're going to be in that zone, and then towards that 15 18 mile mark of that run, your legs are just going to feel so tired. But how do you get them up? And that's just memory recall for me. A lot of times it's like you can get through it, just understand how that feels. And you do that a lot with your swim training too. That's why you do those hard sets, is that it's that same thing, man. It's not like trying to say, hey, I'm going to make you a 110 100-meter swimmer or something like that. It's going to be more like, hey, when I'm at 3,500 meters, I got 500 to go. It's that feeling that you get, and how do you get through that? And it's not only mentally good, it's just physically good, because your body can do it. It's like, hey, I've done this before. I understand what's going on right now. I'm feeling fatigued, and I just got to keep churning. Just keep spinning, keep moving those legs. And I just think that is such a huge point, because that gray zone training can really give you a false sense of security, and you don't understand what it means to hit mile 16 of that run and not be able to hold that pace that you thought you had in the bag.
Yeah. Listen, if you can, and this is, I mean, you have to have swam well and within yourself, and biked, controlled and within yourself. But the biggest difference you'll find on a race day between athletes and their success or non-success, or their ability to PR or not PR, or be on the podium or not be on the podium, is, do you find yourself running the marathon, or do you find yourself racing the marathon? And if you can be one of those people, and listen, it is not, I think it's the hardest thing to do in the sport. But if you can find a way to run and race the marathon, then you're going to be so much farther ahead than anybody else. But you got to have the wheels to do it. Because it is, I think, the only time, because listen, they're few and far between, based on execution, but you should be able to, to race it. But you got to be fresh and you got to be ready. And then before you get out there mentally, you should, I think a lot of people already immediately convince themselves before they get out there that they're going to do a walk run, which is nothing wrong with. And a lot of people actually have a lot of success with it. And still keeping their pace down. Because if you're not a person that can get in adequate calories at aid stations by running through, then you need to walk. Because listen, the 10 to 15 seconds you might lose versus running uber slow and not getting any nutrition, versus walking fast and getting big sips of Coke and water or Gatorade or Chews, whatever, it's 100% totally worth it to avoid the total bonk. But walk with a mission. Don't walk because you want to, talk about where the volunteer is from and how they got into this. Like, you run up, you grab your waters, you walk fast, you get it, and you go. But because it's important, because Emily, it's worth it. But at the same time, when you pick it back up again, your job is to run as steady and as hard as you can to the next one, and then just repeat. But it's the mentality of, then I just got to, like, I'll probably end up the run will just be what it'll be. And it's going to be, but it's also based on what your mentality is going into it of, I'm going to set myself up so I can race it. And then when I get to whatever mile marker, or whenever I get to this, or whenever I just really feel it, I'm just going to bury myself. And if you can, and that's the thing though, you have to be willing to go there. You have to be willing to bury yourself and know that I've just got to withstand this much amount of pain for this amount of time. And if I can do that, then I will be very, very, very successful.
Mm-hmm. And that magical mystery of turning the corner and seeing the finish line will take away all that pain somehow. We just never, we have never figured out how that happens. But look, this is something I've done 5 Ironman, and I'm talking about this, and I still haven't mastered it. I'm just talking it out because it helps me to think about it and articulate what I know is right, because it's so easy to forget on race day.
Yeah.
It's so easy to forget in the moment. And that's why I write about it, and I talk about this all the time, is like writing your thoughts down kind of clarifies them and cements them in your mind a little bit better. And that's how I'm training right now. I'm just thinking about what you were just saying, man. It's like you have to have a plan, you have to get what you need, and you have to be patient. And I would like to race the marathon. I haven't done it yet in my mind, so I'm not saying that I know how to do it. I guess mentally I can kind of visualize it, but I haven't been able to execute it yet. And, I think that's the beauty of this sport too, is that it's very tricky, It's like you can have a plan, man.
And it takes practice.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of practice.
Practice and patience, yeah.
I mean, patience, it's weird, but, 90% of my training up to this point right now has been working on patience and trying to, we ride out at this airport, and like I said, every time I go out there, the first thing that hits my mind is just put the hammer down. It's like I have to really work at holding back. And it's so funny because the one thing I learn a lot about training is that when you hold back and you try to, you kind of put your head in that relaxation space, not, lazy space, but just sort of, take it easy, think about your, just move fluidly and be relaxed and free. It's kind of interesting how that actually takes you closer to maybe the speed you want to go than you think it does.
Yeah.
I find that a lot in the water. When I find a good spot when I'm swimming, oh my God. That is like the worst thing I do is start thinking about what I'm doing, form-wise in the pool. But if I can just relax, let my body flow, and kind of just let those, muscle memory things take over and feel relaxed in my lats and, the whole body just like be swimming versus like a robot trying to articulate every perfect little thing in swim strokes, I just feel better, and I don't feel like I'm losing, I feel like I'm swimming at a pretty good pace. And then, if you can just somehow learn to relax going a little faster, those are the things that I think
they add up.
Yeah, they add up. It's like if you, again, I've talked about it before. When I started drumming, the best thing to do is just start drumming really slow until you have that, it's just the instinct. And then you start building speed. You don't sit down at a drum set and try to be, John Bonham right out of the gate. That'll drive your spinal cord and your, everything crazy. It really will. It's all like go slow. See how you can do it and find that spot in everything and be comfortable, and then just kind of figure out a way to inch it up and build it with the same relaxed form. That's so key.
Just slowly moving the needle.
Yeah, because your instinct is always going to be to go faster, right? So.
Oh, always, yeah.
if you can just let that sort of happen. I mean, that's the interesting thing about running without a watch, right? Is that you kind of, or racing without a watch, you kind of just probably find yourself trying to, feel good and let it happen naturally, and your body will just respond if you don't push it too fast, too fast, too fast.
Too fast, too furious.
Mm-hmm. Fast and furious. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to be that, but yeah. So I think it's a good place to wrap her.
Yeah.
Big weekend. Best of luck to everybody racing. We've got a lot of athletes in this Boulder 70.3 and some other ones going on, and then they just keep coming. They just keep coming. We got our final camp this coming week, August camp. We got 23 athletes coming into town from all over for our final camp of the year. All of our camps this year, we're fortunate enough to have sold out, and just so many awesome people. I can't wait to meet more. And then we already have our camp dates listed for next year, and the first 2 camps have already sold out. So if you have any questions on that, I think we'll have a link in the show notes for more information. But if you have any more questions and just general on anything coaching or training related, you can always just go and email me directly at c26coach@gmail.com. And look forward to camp next week, and then it'll be on to whatever's next.
Whatever is next.
Yeah.
For me, that's Ironman Louisville.
It is, and I'm doing something. I'm just not, really sure yet.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
You going to South Africa?
No. I'm a hard pass on that one.
Hey, can we quickly talk about one thing about your race?
Yeah.
When I saw you at the end of the race, and let's back it up just a little bit. I saw you at mile roughly 11, and it was or 11 and a half maybe. That turnaround.
Where the turn was, yeah.
The turnaround, and you ran past the turnaround, you were taking it home. I was trying to track you on the leaderboard of the tracker. Now, look, the tracker is amazing. It's just... I tried to get as far away from the timing mat as I could to kind of get a little bit more accurate read on what place you were in. And at the time, you asked, how am I doing? And I said, I think it's 5th. And you ran in, and then 10 seconds later, you bumped to 6th because somebody must have came across the mat or whatever. And then when I got back, I think, what did you end up, 8th technically?
Yeah, I think 7th or 8th is where I ended up. Yeah,
8th in the age group, and the separation between 3rd and 8th was like 2 minutes or something like that. So, but the point I wanted to ask you about was that when I saw you, finally got back to the expo and the finish line, and I saw you, and I said, how you doing? How you feeling? You said you're very happy.
Yes.
Can you tell me? Can you tell me why?
Yeah, well, I've already.
That's a good. I know, but
I can tell. Yeah,
a little bit.
I felt like I felt like I executed exactly what I wanted to do. And listen, I did not take this race seriously because I totally 100% did. I took this race very seriously, but my goal for this race was to perfectly execute my day. And my day was to set me up to give myself a really good barometer of where I was at physically and from a durability standpoint. Because listen, you can have a great race, but if you don't execute well, then sometimes it's hard to replicate. And my next big race is my big one. And so I took the approach of I wanted to swim very, very easy, like Ironman pace. If not, honestly, a little bit slower. It was what I wanted to kind of do. Just very controlled, very relaxed, all arms, basically swimming like distance per stroke, which I usually do as well anyway. I didn't wear a swim skin. I didn't wear a wetsuit, obviously. And then kind of chilled and gathered myself in T1, which was what I wanted to do anyway, and just really have my, catch my breath. Because sprinting through T1, you might save 20 seconds, but you might also be totally out of breath. I just wanted to get my legs under me, and then I biked really, really controlled for the most part. I was really close to where I wanted to be, Just really, really in control, never hurting, never like I want this to be over with. And then on my run, my goal was to really pace. I ran watchless, but my goal was to really, really pace the first half of the run incredibly controlled, like almost Ironman effort controlled. And then if I felt good, then on the back half I would put the throttle down some and try a negative split. And so I ended up actually trying to implement that as close as I possibly could. Like I actually stopped at that Red Bull first aid station before the first mile mark and took a leak in the Porta John.
There's your negative split.
Which basically ensured it. And then I actually purposely walked, I think, 4 aid stations to get in fluids, and then skipped the last one. But right around mile 7, I started to feel really, really good. And so I was like, yeah, I'm just going to take it home from here, and ran hard to the finish. And yeah, I ended up 8th in my age group, which was, I was less than 2 minutes out of 4th and 2 minutes and 10 seconds out of 3rd. So very, very tightly knit age group I've got. But yeah, I mean, I was still happy. Executed. Is it always nice to be on the podium? Well, sure. It's a cool experience and one that I like having. But I did what I came to do, and the race served its purpose, and that left me pretty happy with where I was, physically, and then it gives you a lot of confidence to execute things well, and then again to have perfect nutrition leading up to my big race of the year is also all big confidence boosters. So I left very happy with where I am. It's just it's a hard pill to swallow. It can be, but at the same time, I came to I did what I came to do, and so I was happy with that.
That works for me, man. Okay, check out crushingiron.com for all things that we talk about and offer, including coaching from Robbie. And if you're not in the closed Facebook group but would like to, search Crushing Iron Group, and we will let you in there. And that's where a lot of the conversation happens. So
that's it.
Onward and upward.
Onward and have fun, race hard, and let us know how you do, and we'll check you back on Monday.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Yep. See you guys.
See ya.